This episode of the Cult Popture Podcast was brought to you by our Patreon.
If you want to tell us which films we should watch, get up to 2 extra exclusive podcasts a month, give us something to talk about in the post-credit scenes at the end of each episode, or even contribute to the discussion in the episode itself, then please consider joining the cult and donating at www.patreon.com/cultpopture.
Hello and welcome along to the Pop Culture Podcast. Nope, scratch that. Reverse it.
Wow, Richard, my beautiful husband. I'm just kidding. It's because we're best friends, so I call him my husband sometimes. Not usually to his face though. Welcome to our podcast, Richard. You look well. You look rested.
I'm not. I haven't slept in
sarcastic.
2 weeks. I've been too busy watching bloody Men in Black films.
4?
4 of them.
Yeah, 4 of them, but
oh,
for your
sorry,
podcast.
I thought you were... I did not...
Correct, AJ. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4.
1, 2, 3, international.
That's how I count now. Based off the Men in Black numbering scheme. Welcome to the Cult Popture Podcast, everybody. This is Film Franchise Fortnights, where we cover a different franchise every fortnight.
And we're your hosts, Jones and Martin.
Jones and Martin, as referred to in a new article from Slash Film. We also appeared on Letterboxd today, which is just as cool but less surprising if you know anything about us.
I forgot to tell you, one of my PR contacts who works in film in New Zealand messaged me to say that they saw that and loved it.
Loved it. That's very good. Yes, so we've been all over the show talking about Barbie in light of the new film and the fact that we have seen 42 others. And so if you want to hear us rank them, talk about them, whatever, you can read an article on Letterboxd, you can watch a video on Letterboxd, and now you can read an article in which we were interviewed for Slash Film.
Or you can listen to an 18-hour podcast.
That's true. And I thought the Slash Film article came out today, and
no, it did come out
boy,
today.
does it, huh?
Yeah, it did.
What?
You said you thought it came out today, and I can confirm it did.
Thank you. And yeah, it makes us look very academic. It makes us look very cool. It refers to us by our last names,
said Martin.
which is very fun. I get called Alexander AJ Jones twice in the thing, and it has some pull quotes that is like, I'm so grateful that BJ took the smartest things we said in that hour-long interview and left out all of the dumb things we said
I
as
like movies. Barbie was silly.
Yeah. But Barbie we're talking about Barbie, and the whole world's talking about Barbie. Why don't we talk about men for once? Which, if you've seen Barbie, is actually fairly in line thematically with Barbie, I guess.
Yeah, they do talk about men a lot in that film.
But specifically Men in Black, and I nearly said black men, which one of them happens to be, but that's not why I mentioned it.
Yeah, we're talking about this is Film Franchise Fortnights, and yeah, we're discussing the Men in Black films. If you haven't seen them or you don't know the titles of them, we're talking about Men in Black, which came out in 1997, followed 5 years later in 2002 with Men in Black 2, stylized with Roman numerals, and then Men in Black 3, not stylized with Roman numerals, 10 years later in 2012.
It's an alien cubed situation.
And then Men in Black International, which came out in 2019, which is sort of a standalone sequel spin-off sort of thing.
What do you reckon? A soft reboot? Is that what we call a soft reboot?
Yeah.
Because it's set in the same universe, but brand new characters.
Yeah.
Except one who returns, and you'll never guess who's the character that returns for Men in Black International.
I reckon I could guess.
I guess so. It's just such a random,
because I've seen it.
Yeah, right. Or you've seen it. We'll talk about it.
And I remember seeing the trailer as well. So, Men in Black 1997, directed by one of your favourite directors, AJ.
One of my
Barry
favourite
Sonnenfeld.
directors. The mastermind, the auteur behind 2002's Big Trouble, starring Tim Allen, Rene Russo,
which is like
Zooey
a film
Deschanel.
version of Arrested Development.
It's like a film version of Justin Long.
There's a bit where he says, "Was that a goat?"
He says, "Patrick Warburton, Janine Garofalo is in this thing."
Yeah,
DJ Quiles is in the movie.
Your good friend DJ Quiles.
It keeps Johnny Knoxville. My Name is Earl is in the Gabrielle from Modern Families, and the Stanley Tucci is Martha Stewart is in the movie. It's got an all-star cast.
One of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it's what? And it was bookended by Barry Sonnenfeld making Men in Black 1 and 2. Those were the films that he did immediately before and after. And yeah, if you're wondering what he's up to these days, his most recent film was 9 Lives. Do you remember that film, AJ?
Yes, also called Mr. Fluffy Pants or something like that.
Something like that, which was the film which resulted in Kevin Spacey's cancellation. A lot of people think it was the sexual assaults. It was that film.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Do you know what I believe?
It's currently in an ongoing court case about that film, I believe.
I actually think that it should have been the sexual assaults that cancelled him and not just his bad movie. That's just what I believe.
Yeah. I reckon that's a good call.
Men in Black, Barry Sonnenfeld. You know what? For a director who, you probably couldn't, pick his face out of a crowd. Very idiosyncratic style, I think, because he's also done, Get Shorty, or whatever it's called. And
so there was... Men in Black was supposed to be earlier, but then they went to other directors and... because he was doing Get Shorty and then they were just waiting for him to do it. And... Yeah, he did the Addams Family and Addams Family Values as well.
Yeah, it's whether you like Big Trouble or you don't, it's a respectable filmography in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah. Interestingly, though, so he did Get Shorty, but he didn't do the sequel, Be Cool. Do you know who directed Be Cool?
Who directed Be Cool?
F. Gary Gray.
No kidding!
Wow.
He directed Men in Black International along with
so
the Fast
second
and the
time
Furious.
he's got in a Barry Sonnenfeld's sloppy seconds. He did Fate of the Furious. Was the
I did Fate of the Furious, I beg your pardon.
And Straight Outta Compton was sort of his because obviously he was working before that, but that was the one that was really put him on the map and got him these franchise films.
Yes.
So, AJ, Men in Black, 1997, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. What is it about?
Well, Richard, what if I told you that there was a secret organization of men, mainly men, wearing black suits who sort of are the govern the existence, but also permission of extraterrestrials coming to Earth. It's almost like a immigration system, or they're almost like an airport, but they also follow up on
the
crime.
Police for them.
Yeah. Also the police. They're the airport and the police.
They're the TSA.
Yeah, there you go. And we mainly follow a couple of these men in black. One is named Agent K, played by Tommy Lee Jones, who at the start of the film, his partner, is slow to draw and decides he doesn't want to be a man in black anymore, and so he gets neuralized, where all his memories get wiped. And while this is happening, K spots a young man played by one Willius Smithus, who he sees a sort of potential in, so he recruits him to be a man in black. He becomes Agent J, and the two must take out a giant termite alien that has come to Earth and threatens to destroy everything we hold dear. He is played by Vincent D'Onofrio in an incredible performance that is quite reminiscent, I thought, of one Bifurcus Tannen from Back to the Future, which we recovered.
Yeah, I never draw that comparison.
And the sense, and maybe more Mad Dog Tannen, and the sense that it's a really this is the role you'd want to play if you were acting.
I get what you mean, but I don't know that. I think he would be too much effort to play. The way he's always
Well, maybe that's what's so great about the performance then, is that it at the start it shows that the termite alien has literally eaten this guy's insides and is wearing his skin as a suit. And throughout the movie, it's quite convincing that that's what's happened. Aside from the special effects.
And
his face is all sunken in.
Yeah,
it's great. It's so good.
It's great. It's a fantastic performance, yeah.
Yeah. And they defeat it. And then at the end, Agent K is like, hey, listen, man, I've seen horrors beyond your comprehension. I would like to...
things you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I would like to...
Ships off the
Tannhauser
Gate.
Tannhauser Gate, bro. Yes.
The Orions.
Yes, Richard.
Yes.
And he's like, neuralize me,
I used to
baby.
know that whole speech.
And so Will Smith neuralizes Tommy Lee Jones, brings the mortician on board who he's got a crush on to be a woman in black. And also...
So we'll be seeing a lot more of her.
Rip Torn is also there as Agent Z. That's the movie. And then Will Smith did music, did the single for it.
What do you think of the theme song for this movie?
Here comes the man in black. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
I actually know all the words to it.
Regale me.
The good guys dress in black. Remember that, just in case we're ever face to face and make contact. The title held by me, MIB, means what you think you saw, you did not see. So don't blink, be warned was there, is now gone. Black suits with the black Ray-Bans on. Walk in shadows, move in silence, guard against extraterrestrial violence. But we are on no government list. We straight don't exist. No names and no fingerprints. Saw something strange, watch your back, because we never quite know where the MIBs is at.
And Richard, as you were rapping that, what I was doing was nodding my head.
Yeah, let me see you nod your head.
because
the bat suits are coming.
The bat suits.
The bat suits.
The bat suits are coming.
Did you see that picture on Twitter of a Barbie Batman cosplay? And it was like, someone tweeted being like, oh my god, this Barbie Batman cosplay didn't have to go this hard. You know, saw this at San Diego Comic-Con. And all the replies are just like, did you not tell the AI about 9/11? Because you could clearly see the Twin Towers in the background of shot.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think that's something I think is awesome.
9/11 will come back up on this podcast as well because the second film came out in 2002, and like all films in 2002, for some reason they originally planned to have their climax happen at the World Trade Center.
There's also just sort of you're certainly reminded of 9/11 watching Men in Black 1 because it's set in New York, and there is at least off the top of my head one hero shot of the Twin Towers in the background when Jay is delivering an alien baby from the back of a car and it goes all tentacly on him.
Which is like, I didn't know the World Trade Center before 9/11.
Yeah, you were like 8 years old.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's my point. Like,
all right. So, I thought you were trying to be like, it's funny how it's like it didn't exist till it didn't exist.
Well, but it's one of those things that it's like, looking back and just seeing that, like, just how iconic of a skyline that was for, and I mean, everyone knows this, but like, that it's like literally everything in New York had that in it. And made a point of like, this is how you know it's New York. And
I literally just rewatched an old episode of After Hours on Cracked that was about how 9/11 changed all the sitcoms because all the sitcoms for some reason were set in New York, and then 9/11 happened and none of them mentioned it. And then all the new sitcoms moved away from New York. Isn't that depressing? Like they were, Joey came out after Friends and he went to California, and that's literally moving the show. And it's kind of sad because it totally would have been you're pitching a new show, and it's just like, I don't think we can set this in New York at the moment.
No one's. We can't have fun in this city.
And it's kind of depressing, but I'm sure there's plenty of shows set in New York now. So get over it. Not 9/11, just the fact that not all the shows are set there.
Yeah. So interestingly, I knew this was obviously, this film's obviously a big hit. It got a sequel and everything, but this was the third highest grossing film of 1997 and the ninth highest grossing film of the 90s.
An original fucking film.
I mean, to be fair, it's based on comics, but I feel like when we talk about everything as a sequel or a remake, we allow for that. We allow if it's okay if it's based on something. I feel like. I mean, the MCU kind of muddies the water these days.
It's okay. Let me rephrase. It's okay if it's based on something small, like a small thing. Then it still counts as an original IP.
Like your average film goer isn't going to this because they're a fan of the comics or
No,
the existing
exactly.
lore. And also like the MCU, because you'd be like, oh, Shang-Chi did really well, even though that's based on a comic no one's heard of. But it's like, yeah, even though it's the first film of the Shang-Chi franchise, it's like...
We know
it's
why
the
you went to
MCU.
see it. It's because of those white letters on that red square.
Yeah. But yeah, it's crazy. So, I mean, the other two films that grossed more in 1997, can you guess what they are?
97. Lost World Jurassic Park?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, man. And Armageddon.
No.
No? Am I
What
close?
was Armageddon was later because it was trying to recapture the magic of
Deep
the first-
Impact. Wait, what's it called? Event
Titanic.
Horizon. Oh, Titanic. I was guessing of the other movie that was like... Yeah.
No, because
Titanic.
Armageddon
Of
was
course,
like,
of
we'll
course,
do a big
Titanic.
romantic epic,
Yeah, right.
based around a disaster.
Are you talking about
Pearl
Pearl
Harbor
Harbor? I guess Armageddon is that as well.
I mean, Armageddon was still at least marketed anyway in the wake of like, we've got a big love theme and, But yeah, so it made $589 million at the box office, which I pumped into a little inflation calculator as 1.1 billion apparently in today's money. And yeah, I mean, it set like a bunch of records. At the time, it was the third highest opening weekend of all time behind Batman Forever and The Lost World Jurassic Park, which had only been a few months earlier. And yeah, it was the biggest 3-day 4th of July opening weekend, surpassing Independence Day, which is about the 4th of
nice.
July.
Interesting.
And yeah, the largest July opening weekend and the highest opening weekend for a non-sequel film.
Yeah, nice. Well, I mean, how cool is that? Like this kind of thing. Okay, you know what room this movie shares a space in my mind with?
R.I.P.D.
No. Why would you say that? Is that a Sonnenfeld as well?
No, it just feels like it was trying to be the next Men in Black.
Ah, right.
There's a sequel to R.I.P.D. It came out like last year.
Wow, what's it called?
I don't know. It has a subtitle.
Do you know R.I.P.D. is a movie that I could have very easily not known about? I heard about it on a podcast.
It's called Rise of the Damned. It doesn't have anyone from the original in it.
So I reckon this movie belongs in the same room in my brain as our beloved Jumanji sequels, Richard. I reckon that the way I love Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle and The Next Level feels similar to the way that I loved watching this movie last week.
You love Men in Black.
I loved Men in Black.
Do critics agree with you? What does it have on Rotten Tomatoes?
Oh, I reckon we're scoring very high on Rotten Tomatoes, Richard. I reckon we're 90s. Let's go 97 as 91. Is the year. There you go. No, I think this is a great movie, and here's the bomb. You ready for the bomb? I think this might have been the first time I've seen it. I've definitely, when I was a kid, I remember Vincent D'Onofrio pulling his face back and being terrified of that. And I remember...
I've seen it then.
What? So, and I remembered like the wonky CGI on the termite monster, and I remember Will Smith neuralizing. I remember bits of it, but as this movie started, and it's this really cool like end of a mission you didn't see, where like the it's like the immigration cops pull over a bunch of like people from Mexico trying to smuggle into the country, and then the Men in Black, Tommy Lee Jones and another guy show up, and one of them's an alien, and the whole way that was presented and the way it showed you that his old partner is like losing it, I was like so captivated by it, and I have no memory of ever seeing that scene before, and I thought Tommy Lee Jones was so good in the whole movie, but especially that scene of just being a guy that rocks up and is like, just commands the scene, and it was exciting. And as the movie went on, I reckon I've maybe seen half of this movie, but not a complete half, just bits and pieces over the years. And I just thought it was so good. I thought it was so fun and interesting, and like it's really creative. And what's interesting about the Men in Black series is there is such a specific tone to them that I don't think is shared. It's not a generic director.
Sonnenfelden.
That's what I'm saying. It's Sonnenfelden. Do you agree? Like there's something to it that you don't see in every movie like it, I think. What do you think?
Yeah. It's interesting because I had Men in Black 2. One Christmas, I got Men in Black 2 and Spider-Man on VHS. And must have been probably Christmas of 2002. And so I'd seen Men in Black 2 maybe a dozen times. And then, it wasn't until maybe even after Men in Black 3 that I actually went and watched the first one. And because Men in Black 2 was a famously inferior sequel. Like, people talk about it in the same way they talk about in the same way they talk about like The Godfather 3 kind of thing.
Ghostbusters 2 as people.
Yeah, it's I was thinking it's a very similar franchise to Ghostbusters 2. The reboot as well is like it's kind of in the same universe, but it's very very Ghostbusters. And like even it's interesting having Men in Black 3 that it's like this is what a Ghostbusters 3 could have been had it been made at the time, like in the 90s or something. And it is funny that like I mean I'm nostalgic for Men in Black 2 because it's the one I've seen the most, but Men in Black was so good. Like Men in Black 2 was a fun film in some ways, but Men in Black 1 is like a really good film.
Yeah, it's a really good film.
Sonnenfeld way. And
it's a really good film, yeah.
I remember I think I'd seen on Reddit, it was like at the 10, 12 years ago sort of thing. Like, what's your favorite quote from a film sort of things. And Tommy Lee Jones' speech in this. And then I think that was the moment they realized, I don't know if I ever watched the first one. And then so I went out and watched it. But yeah, man, Kay gives... When he's still known as...
Tell us the speech.
Jay's telling him, you can tell people that aliens exist. People are smart. They'll understand. And he goes, a person is smart. People are dumb. Panicky animals, and you know it. 1,500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew humans were alone on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow.
You're giving me fucking chills, Richard. You bad dog. Like, come on, man. Yeah, man. Hell yeah. It's so good. It's
such a good, like...
Yeah.
It's almost at the level of, I think I said this to you when I was watching it, but like it's almost at the level of do you think God too lives in, stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of his own creation, from Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams. Where it's like, this quote is too good to be in this film, but it's like, the film's actually good enough to have that quote in it.
Say. Spy Kids 2 is like a silly movie to have that. This feels earnest. It feels like such an earnest film that also wants to be funny and fun. One moment that I really liked, similar to that moment, that I was like, you get this in a script and you can play it so much more. You could play it in so many different ways, and it almost feels like a line that you'd see in the trailer. It'd be you've never heard of Men in Black. A trailer comes on, it plays this scene where Jay is being interrogated by the other cops because he's just witnessed an alien for the first time, and he's trying to explain to them that his like eyes blinked twice, like they blinked and then they blinked again, and they're laughing at him, saying they don't believe him, and he's just saying like, look, this is just what happened. And then they leave the room, and Kay walks in, and he says, he's acting all shifty, and he's like, did he say anything to you? And he said, yeah, he said the world was going to end. And Kay goes, did he say when? And I was just so captivated by that, because imagine being in that situation, right? And like, you don't even believe yourself. You think you're probably going a bit crazy. And then this very serious man is very genuinely interested in the details of this ridiculous thing that this guy said. I thought that was so good. It was such a good line.
Do the voice though.
Did he say when? I don't have not enough words. Did he say when? Just making it more.
All right, whatever you say, Slick.
Yes. I just do the full like monologue from the end of No Country for Old Men.
Yeah. I'm twice the age he was. I'm twice the age now that he ever was.
That's such a good line. I'm twice the age now. What I like. Talking about No Country for Old Men now, that's such a good line. Tommy Lee Jones, man. I just love Tommy Lee Jones because he looks like he's too good to be in a lot of the things he's in. Like, I think about him playing Two-Face every now and then, and I'm just like, that's crazy that Tommy Lee Jones did that. That's
he
crazy.
was able to sanction
Jim Carrey's buffoonery. But I think that Men in Black, like, if on one side of the spectrum is No Country for Old Men for good Tommy Lee Jones films, the other side is Men in Black, and Batman Forever's in the middle, where it's like, the sort of or maybe it's the other way. Maybe, okay, Batman Forever's on the other end of the spectrum in terms of like how seriously he's taking the role, and Men in Black's in the middle, and that's a great place to see an actor who takes himself as seriously as Tommy Lee Jones.
I was reading as well that Tommy Lee Jones was one of these things where he was actually like, he wanted some tomfoolery or buffoonery, and like he had to be talked into by the director, like, no, you have to play this super seriously, like you are the straight man. He was like, no, I want to be goofy as well, but and I mean it works. The dynamic they have, is
Sonnenfeld's right. Isn't Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones such an under-discussed classic buddy cop duo? No one's ever talking about them two, and they're great together, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the idea of Will Smith has evolved as a star. Like, you look at, 1997 Will Smith, height of his fame, he had just come off Wild Wild West, or had he?
Wild Wild West was after Men in Black. Also Barry Sonnenfeld, I believe.
Yeah. When did that come out?
I think it was 97, or maybe 98.
99.
Okay.
Which makes sense that, he was... turned out The Matrix to do that, so same year it came out.
Oh, but good on him.
Good on him. But yeah, that like, just like the coolest guy on earth, and like effortlessly charismatic, and just so much fun to watch. And then I mean, that's still stretched by the time Men in Black 2 was out. He was still rapping at the time, he did a theme song for that one. And then I remember 2012, like, he didn't do a theme song he hadn't rapped in years.
No, it's a Pitbull song.
For the third one. It's a Pitbull song. Back in time. And then, like, had he been in 2019's Men in Black International, like, we're getting, again, a very different Will Smith. I mean, if he was in it now... again, the public perception of Will Smith has changed a lot. Again, this is one of those things that's kind of, because of our age, it's a little bit lost on us. But like, how familiar are you with the conspiracy theory of Men in Black?
I'd love to talk about this because I've listened to years ago, so I don't remember much, but I've listened to a 3-part series on the Men in Black before from last podcast on the left. I think it's a really, I think what's interesting about comparing like Men in Black ufology and that sort of thing with the film is it's very different tonally. Like I think of Men in Black historically, and I'm thinking of like I don't know what exactly I'm describing here, but did you ever play Destroy All Humans?
Yeah.
The like news reporter vibe of that, and like it's very much like playing on 50s conspiracy, that sort of thing. That's not what the Men in Black films feel like, which I think is interesting. They feel a lot more modern and cutting edge than the almost vintage idea I see in my mind when I think of the quote unquote real Men in Black. But one thing I remember that's really interesting is that in and I wouldn't say real life, but in what is officially understood as ufology Men in Black lore, I think the Men in Black are not human, which that's what I found out on that podcast. I thought that's really interesting, is that there's a big contingent of these conspiracy nuts where the Men in Black are actually alien visitors that are part of the extraterrestrial situation and not protecting our eyes from it, or at least that's one commonly held theory.
That's really interesting. Yeah, like because it is one of these things that like like you think of aliens and it's like, oh yeah, that idea spans, but it's like the Men in Black film franchise has capitalized on that term, so it's like you don't get other things about the Men in Black. This idea of like this nebulous idea,
and in that sense, does this franchise not feel almost somewhat inevitable? Like I remember talking about Nightmare on Elm Street and how like a villain that haunts you in your dreams feels like as soon as we started telling stories, we were going to end up like as a species. As soon as we started telling stories, we were going to end up at Nightmare on Elm Street. And Men in Black permeating culture in that very specific niche way. It's like, yeah, of course there's going to be a movie about alien cops called Men in Black.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, I mean, like R.I.P.D. is the same.
It's the same thing. It's the same
like,
thing.
Of course we're going to do a film about a rest in peace department. This film was nominated for 3 Oscars, interestingly. Won 1.
Won
for...
1-4.
It was nominated for art direction, makeup, and a musical or comedy original score, because they used to split comedy by genre. So they used to split score by genre at the Oscars. It won Best Makeup. So
and it deserves it.
Edgar the Bug stuff you were talking about?
Yeah. Agar. What's her name? What's that actress's name? The one that plays Edgar's wife?
Fran. She looks like a Fran. Siobhan Fallon Hogan.
Yeah. Her pronunciation of Edgar every time she says it is like one for the history books. It's like she doesn't even say half the letters in it. She just goes, Agar.
Originally, like 5 months into the shoot, Barry Sonnenfeld decided that he wanted to change the original ending to the one that's on screen. So originally it ended with a humorous existential debate between Agent J and Edgar. But then they were like, wait a minute, that doesn't have any of the action the rest of the film has had, and isn't very exciting. So there was 5 different replacement endings discussed. Wow. One was Laurel Weaver, the morgue attendant, being neuralized, and Kay remaining an agent. Eventually it boiled down to the bug eating Kay and fighting Jay, replacing the animatronic bug Rick Baker's crew had developed with a computer-generated bug with an appearance closer to a cockroach, which is what we see, and it cost an extra $4.5 million.
And, it makes you wonder, would an animatronic... because there's a lot of prosthetic effects in these movies, and it looks great every time. Like the fucking newborn baby, I always remember that baby. That was one of the scenes I'd seen somewhere along my life, because I remember that little alien baby's little tummy button and just being like, that looks like a real tummy button. It looks great. And watching this now in 2023, the CGI cockroach is a bit of a disappointing ending almost because of how it looks compared to everything else. But yeah, no, what is I've got and it's not enough for me to like take my praise of this film down much. And if anything, it's made worse in the sequels or because of the sequels. But I've got one, humbug with the film, which is that J and K are only partners for 2 days before K is neuralized. And I think it's made, as I said, it's made worse in the sequels because the way they talk about it in the sequels is like they were partners for ages before Kay got neuralized. But they're only partners for 2 days. And I wish how easy would it have been to just chuck a montage in there of...
Yeah, I mean, in the third one,
that
issue solved a bit because it came out 10 years after the second one.
Yeah, for sure. But like the way they talk. Okay, so in Men in Black 2, not to jump ahead, they're like, there's only one man who can solve the problem of the movie, and it's your old partner. And Will Smith is like, oh my god, this is crazy. Will Smith, Jay's been there for 4 or 5 years by that point. If someone was like to me, You'll never guess who the person we need you to go get is, I would not think, the guy that was around for my 2 days of orientation before leaving and I was assigned under someone else. Like, like, I don't know. I think it would have been really easy to stretch that time out, but there's this real, like, impetus on making it such a short amount of time. There's a ticking
clock introduced as well of, like, the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to negate your not to jump forward, I am ready to move on to Men in Black 2, if you are.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so 5 years later, Men in Black 2 came out. Again, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. As I mentioned, it's a famously inferior sequel. What do you think it has on Roddy T's?
I reckon 42.
38%.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing with the ending of, and French-wise money. So there's an interesting thing. The end of the first one with Kay being neuralized, it's one of those classic. It's like putting Jennifer in the back of the DeLorean.
Yeah,
it's like where they didn't think, oh shit, this really fucks us up for a sequel, or like, did they not want to make a sequel, or what? Because I refuse to believe this was their plan the whole time.
Yeah, no, of course not. I guess sequels weren't as like obvious back then, maybe.
True.
But like it is funny that it's like it almost feels like something you'd put in your film to screw the next director who's taking the sequel. So it wouldn't be seen as good as yours.
J.J. Abramsy.
Yeah, but then Barry Sonnenfeld did do the sequel, and the sequel is about it's 4 to 5 years later, and there is a evil alien. What's the bad guy's name?
Oh God, what is she? The Serlina.
Serlina is returned to Earth after 50 years or so, 40 years, I think, to retrieve something called the Light. She takes the form...
Light of Zartha.
The Light of Zartha. She takes the form of Lara Flynn Boyle, and in my memory of this film, I remember it having a sexy lady in it. I did not realize that it was fucking the woman from Twin Peaks in a very different role. I think it's very strange to see a Twin Peaks actor take on a more normie role because Twin Peaks is such a weird thing that it's like you can't really imagine these people doing anything else. But anyway, and the only person that they think knows how to save the day, save the light, is Kevin, Agent K, who's now working in a post office. He believes he was in a coma for 30 years. And so they go and deneuralize him. Meanwhile, Jay is feeling very lonely. He decides not to neuralize a young woman who's witness to an alien crime, and sort of has an affection for her. At the end, they kill Serlina, but then they have to send this woman back to space because it turns out she's the Light. She's the daughter of this savior race situation, and also maybe Kay's daughter. It's kind of not really clear. And yeah.
Then they neuralized the entirety of New York City
through the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah, which was originally going to be the Twin Towers.
Ah, right. And you know what, dude? For as like average as this movie is, especially compared to the first one, surprisingly bleak ending. And I've always thought that. I've always thought that it was a kind of quite a down buzz ending of him just sending this woman off, just because that's what needs to be done. And that brings me to my next point, which is I think I've seen this movie quite a few times.
Yeah.
In contrast to Men in Black 1, I think that the Men in Black cartoon series was quite big for me when I was like 7. Yeah. And so this coming out was like, well, I have to see it because I watched the cartoon, and not I have to see it because I've seen the first one. So yeah. I feel a lot more familiar with this one. The thing that the moment when watching it this time that made me be like, oh my God, I remember this movie, is when they reveal to Kay that most of the post office workers there are also aliens, and he opens up the copy or the envelope swisher thing, and there's just this gangly alien in there like smoking a cigarette, and he's like, what's going on? And that dude gets so much screen time in the Nod Your Head Black Suits Coming music video.
Yeah. Did you want to talk a little bit about the TV series which came out between, because you mentioned that there was like one really specific thing that you had to talk about, and you were hoping I would.
No, that was just the fact that Men in Black were apparently aliens. And
right, okay, right.
And modern mythology.
Yeah. I mean, like normally because I mean, I remember watching the Men in Black TV series a lot as well. It was like a Saturday morning cartoon type thing. It featured. It's set in an alternate timeline to the universe, to the film universe. Apparently, Kay didn't retire. Jay is still a rookie, and Al, who's the morgue attendant, is like a senior staff.
And the worms are there. Those guys are the best.
And also,
truly the Slimer of the Men in Black franchise.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's the fucking pug. I don't know.
There's so Edgar Bug appears briefly in a flashback to his death, but his twin Edwin Bug does appear, voiced by Vincent D'Onofrio.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so.
Nice.
But yeah, I remember, that would be a good one for us to do if we can find just, the first 3 episodes or something like that to do.
That'd be cool. That'd be really
follow-ups. Cool. So there was, Agent Al doesn't appear. She in the film, they say she got neuralized because she wanted to go work back at the morgue, and it's just kind of like feels like really set up. That actress has really not done a lot. Like, she's clearly left the public eye. Like, her Wikipedia page says lists her date of birth as like it gives like 2 or 3 years as an option of like.
Jesus Christ, she's not like a historical figure.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, there's some people where it's like clearly just they said in an interview at some point, "Oh, I'm 30," and it's like, well, okay, that means they were born somewhere in this time period if they're telling the truth about their age. And so, yeah, we just don't have like a specific birthday for her. But yeah, apparently the studio just didn't consider her a permanent character in the franchise after the ending of the first one. They're like, oh, we didn't think she'd actually be important.
We'll bring back the character we wrote out of the series, but not this one. Yeah.
But apparently, there was reports apparently suggesting that Fiorentino, that's her last name, was difficult to work with, and supposedly Tommy Lee Jones refused to work with her.
He could not sanction her buffoonery.
Clearly not. Also, yeah, there was the producers apparently wanted to focus a lot more on the love story between Will Smith and Rosario Dawson, and Sonnenfeld took issue with it, saying, "I learned on Wild Wild West the audiences didn't want to see Will as the straight man, and until Tommy comes back in the movie, by definition, Will's the straight man." So they condensed the first part of the movie and brought Kay back earlier.
Right. I don't know if that. Oh no, actually, I do have comments on that. Can I talk about that?
Yeah.
I reckon big script doctor note from script doctor AJ for this film. Kay should not remember who he is until the climax.
Right.
It should be like he gets dragged along, he's going all these things. He's the only one that can save the day, but in the movie it's about maybe like just after halfway he gets deneuralized.
Which is only 40 minutes into the movie.
He gets deneuralized by Tony Shalhoub. And that's when he's back. But it felt very like...
but they still like have a bit of fun with it being like, not all his memories are back. That takes a little while. So they're like, still haven't be fuzzy.
But do you agree that's not a very compelling story?
It should be the other way
engine?
around. It should be that it's like... Because I get that you need him. It's like he has information in his head that it's like, okay, well, we can't deneuralize him, but we need someone that thinks like him.
Yeah,
so it's like we take him to this place, and it's like Postmaster General Kevin is presented with this thing, and it's like, well, okay, how do you decipher this? And then he's like, well, it's slick.
Well, slick. Well, because one of the things he does decipher is he has a photo of himself in his pocket, and then when they go to like the scene of the crime, he matches it with another photo on the wall as a clue. That's something that doesn't need him, and I guess in the movie it isn't. He doesn't remember, but I don't know. Like it's. Yeah, it just seems like such an obvious way to go with it, to not have him remember it till the very moment he needs to remember everything the most. You know?
But I get that it's like, from a marketing point of view, it's like you want your famously good duo back together as soon as possible.
For sure, it's a difficult thing. And what I also think that is maybe like, so you open, and I remember being 7 years old, probably 7 or 8 years old, and being told Men in Black 2's coming out and that Tommy Lee Jones is returning, and even at that young age being like, but they wrote it not in these, not articulated this way, but being like, they wrote him out of.
Seen the film, AJ.
Well, I knew that he got deneuralized. That was one of the things.
I'm not sure.
I want both. I want my cake and to eat it. But like like even as a kid, thinking that was kind of weak to bring back a character that was so clearly like written out of the narrative. And it is the weakest part of the movie, or at least the weakest. If you say, do you know that if you've never seen it, Men in Black 2, they bring Kay back and deneuralize him, I'd be like, that's so stupid. That's obviously just retconning, like going back on the story because you couldn't think of a better idea. The way it's handled in the movie, I think, is actually quite compelling. Like the way the reason for why they need him back is a really good idea for a story.
Yeah, it's not just, I miss K. Yeah,
it's not I miss K. It's he's the only one who has this information in his head, and I really like a lot of stuff in this film. I think it's a great storyline to give Jay that he's lonely and that no one understands him. I think that's very
well, because that also the big part of the joining the Men in Black is you have to cut all ties.
Exactly.
And so deal with that. It's something that breeze over in the first film. Okay, we have to get him into the Men in Black, but then second film, deal with that. Yeah,
it's great. It's a good idea, and I really like that about it. And I think that the something else I really like is it starts with a like old 1950s like the story of the Light of Zartha like old TV show, and we're told in the first one that things like the news of the world, or if you live in Christchurch, New Zealand, the coffee news is like, you know, secretly actually telling you real news but covertly.
Yeah.
And so these TV shows,
my sister married an alien. That kind of stuff.
That sort of thing. And so these TV shows are also part of that. This like so silly no one will actually believe it, but it actually does tell a story. And I think I loved. You know, it's a really chilling bit from Tommy Lee Jones is that when they're trying to refresh his memory and they show him this episode of this cheesy TV show, and they're like, the Men in Black gave the gift to the alien emperor, and Tommy Lee Jones, and Tommy Lee Jones just goes, it was night. And it cuts to like what it actually looked like, and it's like, you know, pouring with rain in the middle of the night. It's chilling, man. It's a good scene. Scene.
One thing, my issue with the deneuralization plot is that I think they don't do a good enough, like, because in the first film there's hints that like, oh, Kay left behind a life and a wife, and you know, is secretly part of him longs to get back to that, and then they've killed off his wife. Right?
No, she divorced him because he looks at the stars because he still maintains.
But it's like, I feel like they didn't do a good enough job of showing that he's like miserable in his new life.
He actually looked quite happy with his life.
Yeah, he's quite content, and so you're now taking that away from him and then dooming him to be in Men in Black until he dies.
Until at least 2013, 2012. Yeah, no, but I guess like he does in the film, he's like the way Jay gets him is he's like, you can't help but look at the stars at night. Yada yada. It's not too strong, but it is a good point. I want to bring up as well. I think something else that kind of weakens Kay's story is across the three films, he has like a different undying love in his past in each one. So in the first film, the reason he wants to get deneuralized is because he misses his wife that he had to leave behind 30 years ago to become a Man in Black, right? And they say he woke up from a 30-year coma or whatever it is. And then in the second one, it's implied that him and the queen of the good aliens, they had Rosario Dawson together, you know, like, so he had another like undying love, and then there's another one in the third one as well. And I just think it's like these all like, I know in real life you can have multiple intense relationships, but I don't know, like they present each one like life is bad writing, but in each one they present it like this was really the love of Kay's life, and it's like for such an emotionless character, it's such a funny thing to like be like, yeah he's kind of like he got around.
I mean, it is Tommy Lee Jones, so you know, what do you expect? But he's
not bad.
Did you see Lincoln?
No.
With Daniel Day-Lewis, and although Daniel Day-Lewis is obviously great at the film, won an Oscar for it, Tommy Lee Jones is the standout of that film. I thought you said LinkedIn. No, sorry. Did you see Lincoln?
LinkedIn. Wasn't worth it. Is Tommy Lee Jones standout in Lincoln?
Yeah, he's so fucking good in Lincoln.
Interesting.
He plays like one of the Republicans who's very staunchly anti-slavery. And then it's revealed at the end that his wife is black. I mean, I haven't seen the film since I saw it in cinemas, but like that, it's kind of a twist ending that it's like, wow, that's why he was so passionate. But like, oh my god, he's so fucking good in the movie. And it's like, cool. I came out of that being like, Tommy Lee Jones was real good, not Daniel Day-Lewis was real good.
Nice, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Anything else to say about the second one? I know you were a big fan of the Michael Jackson cameo.
Michael Jackson cameo in this film is like, obviously I have issues with Michael Jackson. This is a great cameo. This is the kind of cameos that should still happen. It's fun. It's fun, Richard. He's on the big TV talking to Rip Torn's Agent Z, and he's just like, like, I could be Agent M. Is that what he says? Like,
I could be Agent M.
It's so funny to me because it's like, how many stories are there in Hollywood of Michael Jackson begging some director to let him be this iconic character? I think he wanted to be both Peter Pan and Spider-Man, right? Like there's so many stories, and that's essentially what the cameo is him being like, can I please be in Men in Black? And it's like, that's probably what happened in real life. He would probably meet Barry Sonnenfeld at a party. It was like, oh, I loved Men in Black. You gotta let me in. I could be Agent M. And he's like, you know what? That exact line is going in the movie. And also, it's like, it's the most endeared I've ever felt to Michael Jackson that he was able to be like, yeah, I'll take the implication that I'm an alien or a weird, like, outsider.
Yeah, because there's, in the films, there's, like, constantly you see, when you're in the Men in Black headquarters, you see shots of, like, the alien observation, and it's, funny joke that all these people are aliens.
Martha Stewart, Sylvester Stallone, to name a few.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead, but in the fourth one, you see a shot of Elon Musk, and then Liam Neeson says, "It's always the ones you least suspect," and it's like, of all the people to be like, yeah, you'd never expect to be like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a fun little cameo, and it pops up a few times in the film. What do you think of Rip Torn in these films as well?
Rip Torn's another actor where I'm like, how seriously are you taken generally?
Yeah.
Because it's like he has like a gravitas to him, but then also his name's Rip Torn, which is like, what kind of old man actor is named Rip Torn?
Well, and he's in
R.I.P. of course, Rip of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, like, he's in stuff like Dodgeball.
R.I.P.D. of course. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like he has the gravitas of like an actor who did like a Vito Corleone 50 years ago and is just sort of like relaxed into doing sillier roles.
Marsh Turner in Cross Creek is the role you're thinking of.
Oh, so there is one. I was going to say, because I think I've only ever seen him in shit like Freddy Got Fingered and
Patches of Houlihan.
Disney's Hercules and stuff.
Yeah. Have you seen... Because when I think the only other Rip Torn thing that pops to mind is he's in The Man Who Fell to Earth, the Nicholas Roeg film.
No, I haven't seen it.
And yeah, he gets his dick sucked, and it happens for real, and you see it.
Excuse me?
Yeah, unsimulated. You see she takes the top off.
Rip Torn just got a blowjob for a movie.
Yeah. So she like grabs his penis, and he's like, it's like a wide shot. He's lying on a bed, she's there, and she grabs his penis and starts putting it in her mouth, and you see the whole thing, and it's like,
then what happens? No, you said tell me the details, Richard.
Well, the scene just ends there. Well, make something up.
Quickly.
So, yeah, the franchise lay kind of dormant after this. This is one of those franchises, we've talked about this a few times, where it's like, it feels like my entire life happened between Men in Black 2 and Men in Black 3. That it's like one of these franchises I waited forever for, and found out that, oh my God, there's a third one. Holy shit. Like, I can't believe it's been forever. And it's like, if they said, hey, we're doing Men in Black 4 now with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith, I'd be like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because movies just take way longer now. Distant sequels happen all the time.
Yeah. We're less surprised by it because it just kind of happens now. Yeah. And the majesty's fading away from it. It was never really there to begin with, but like, I don't know, Sam Neill coming back for Jurassic World Dominion was like, oh yay! And then I watched the film and was like, I don't care. It's actually kind of ruining the character somewhat.
What is Men in Black 3? Again, directed by Barry Sonnenfeld. What's it about?
So this one is about the emotional storyline, which I thought this was a great idea, but also like kind of soul crushing, is that after now having been partners for 10 or so years, Jay knows nothing about Kay's life. And I was like, because you could go one way or the other, but the way they go is like, they've never shared a deep and meaningful. Like, it's just never happened. And I thought that was great. And at the beginning of the film, we find out that Agent Z has passed away, and they're going to his eulogy, and Kay's speech for him is like, I worked with him for 40 years. He never told me a single detail about his personal life. Thank you. And then he goes back and he's like, what the hell is that? He's like, he was a good man. And there's also Agent O, played by, what's her name?
Emma Thompson.
Emma
the
Thompson.
last person you'd ever expect to reprise her role.
In the next one, yeah. But meanwhile, out on the moon, Jermaine Clement's Boris the animal escapes from moon jail. And can we take a moment to appreciate that, like, Vincent D'Onofrio, Lara Flynn Boyle, and Jermaine Clement, all the same kind of famous, I reckon. You know? Like, a Men in Black villain is a very specific casting, I think. They're all like, not everyone knows who these people are, but they did something really iconic that has meant that they have, like, a fan base, you know? I don't know, I think it's interesting.
If you're making a Men in Black movie this year, who would you cast as the villain?
Tim Robinson.
Fuck, that's good.
Like, he's the same kind of thing, or maybe like well, if it was made in 2019, which it was, maybe Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Oh yeah.
You know, like a popular on TV, very well respected, but not exactly burst onto the scene in a big way yet. Yeah. That's the kind of actor, I reckon. But anyway, he has beef with Kay because, surprise, there's a story in Kay's past, and he works out how to time travel and goes back in time to essentially kill. To 1969, where he kills Agent K, and so Tommy Lee Jones's older Agent K is vanished from existence. Jay works all this out and plots to go back in time to save him. And what we'll talk about it. I'll get through the plot first. Such a unique time travel device, and so cool, so cool. Goes back in time, meets a young Agent K who's played by Josh Brolin, reuniting their No Country for Old Men pairing, where they also don't interact with each other in the same movie.
Do you know, there's actually there's a third film.
There's a third Tommy Lee Jones, Josh Brolin don't interact movie. Josh Brolin, Tommy Lee Jones interact challenge, impossible.
It's got a real weird title.
It's like called like No Country for Old Men. No cunt. It's called No Cunt. I mean, technically, they've been in the MCU together and haven't interacted, and that's like one giant movie.
In the Valley of Elah, which came out the same year as No Country for Old Men. But yeah, they, 3 films that they're in together and don't share any screen time.
That's so funny. So they team up, and Jay sort of learns a bit about Kay, because the younger version of Kay is a lot more chatty, and he's throughout the whole film, he's like, man, what happened to you? There's one point where he says that he's 29 years old, and I couldn't tell if that was a joke or not, because he's obviously not 29.
Well, I think it's one of those things that it's like, because they've established how old he is, it's like, you know, because you're dealing with people that are like, wait a minute, that means that he'd have to be 29 in this film, so they just address it, and it's like,
right.
Yeah, Josh Brolin's like 40 in this film.
Yeah. And they have to go stop Boris at Cape Canaveral. What's he doing? What's his plan? It's to...
what is his plan?
Well, no, it's they've got something Boris wants, and they need to launch it into space. The ArcNet.
Oh, yeah,
they need to launch it into space.
What is it? The Boglodites?
Yeah.
They just destroy every planet in their path, and because of the interaction he had with just Boris in 1969, Tommy Lee Jones set up the ArcNet, which is like a protective shield around the world, and so Boris goes back in time to like stop him doing that.
Yes. And there's a very strange character introduced about 3/4 of the way through the movie, played by Michael Stuhlbarg, who's like this weird key to everything kind of character, but is also doesn't do a lot, I felt. And then the big reveal of the movie is that Boris actually killed Jay's father, who was working at Cape Canaveral, and, you know, the seeds are planted earlier in the film that Jay never knew his dad, and Josh Brolin
early on.
Yeah. Josh Brolin goes up to young Jay, who just happens to be there on the beach of Cape Canaveral. It's a little contrived, but it's a sweet scene, so I'll let it go. Where he sort of neuralizes him and tells him that his dad was a hero, and it's a pretty sweet scene. And then he goes back to the future and goes to talk to Tommy Lee Jones, who's back now, and is like, "Thank you for all you've done." And Tommy Lee Jones is like, "It's been my privilege."
And Tommy Lee Jones is like, "Concrete jungle where dreams are made of."
Yeah, he sings
New York.
American. He sings his American
Empire
Boys.
State of Mind.
Yeah. So this movie's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie.
What do you think it has on Roddy T's?
Let's go 75.
68, yeah.
60, that's lower than I would have thought. It's not as good as the first one, but it's a lot better than the second one, and it's not afraid to take as many risks. I think, this is the second distant sequel I've seen in as many weeks, which is not usually a time travel franchise, but now it is. Now this movie is. And I think this is the better one. This is better than Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And, there's a lot of similarities as well. They're both set on, like, Moon Day or around Moon Day.
Yeah.
And
I see. I was like, I don't think Stuart Little called the Wild involved time travel. But yeah.
Yeah. So the way that time travel works in Men in Black 3, and feel free to correct me if I get anything wrong, but you've got to get a, like, little device that can only be powered by terminal velocity. So you have to go as high as you can and jump off a building or wherever you're jumping off from. And as you're falling, the longer you fall, the further back in time you go. And then you have to break the laser seal on the device when you're at the time period you want to go to, and it'll sling you back up to where you jumped off in that time period. Is that correct? And so the only place they can get to in New York City is the Empire State Building, and they work out to get back to 1969, you have to break the laser seal when you're 2 feet from the concrete. And I was like, it's such good stakes, And like he jumps off and he's falling, and he's like watching time change, because it's like you jump off and time starts from like year 0, so you see dinosaurs and shit as you go down. And then he like goes to the 1950s, and there's like investment bankers who have jumped from the
20s, from the Great Depression.
The 20s, it's such a good gag. And he slingshot, and it's just like, I love the idea of a time travel method in which you risk your life, like utterly and completely. Like if you don't do this right, you'll die, and you'll be in the wrong time period. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to see different playing with it in different ways and stuff. When they started filming the film, so right up until that time travel scene at the end of the first act, they didn't have a second or third act.
What?
Yeah, they didn't have, the second and third acts weren't finished. And Barry Sonnenfeld said, was it responsible? Well, if the movie does as well as I think it will, it's genius. If it's a total failure, then it was a really stupid idea.
Did it do well? What are we talking about?
Yeah, it did do quite well, I think. And it's one of the most expensive films ever made. It's in the top 50.
Really? It doesn't look it. I don't think this looks like a very expensive. It doesn't necessarily look cheap, but there's a simplicity, I think, to the Men in Black visual style that makes me surprised.
$650 million-ish it made.
Wow.
I want to talk about Michael Stuhlbarg in this film, though, AJ.
Well, if you want to, you need to tell me what his role in the film is, then.
He's just like the fun, cute little guy who shows up.
No, but he's his plot device.
Yeah, so he can see every possible future simultaneously. And he exists outside of time, essentially. And I think he's great in the film. I think it's a fun performance. I think that Michael Stuhlbarg has this, like, unmatched just like warmth to him, and like when I saw him in Call Me By Your Name, which is when I obviously seen this before that, but like that was when I was really introduced to like who this guy is. The speech he gives at the end of that film is like, it's Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting, and it's like, there's just that warmth to him that you felt with someone like Robin Williams and everything they do. And I don't know, it's just like, I think he's probably just an actor that I will think is good in everything. But when I messaged you to be like, man, how good is he in this film? And you were like, oof.
I don't think he's particularly good in this film. I like him as an actor, but I don't know if I think he kind of made me feel kind of uncomfortable in this movie. He's got like bright blue eyes and talks like this. My main problem with it is I think he's introduced far too late into the story. Like, he is treated as if he's like he's almost treated like the MacGuffin in a film that has 5 other MacGuffins in it.
Yeah.
and I just it's the point in the movie where I started to feel the star rating drop a little bit, was when got wrapped up in him, and it's like, what are we even talking about? Who is this guy? But yeah, I think I still think this is quite a good movie. I admire it. I think I kind of wish Tommy Lee Jones was in it more, maybe, but I kind of also like the way they deal with what was probably Tommy Lee Jones not wanting to be in this movie that much. And I think that Josh Brolin, despite starring with him in movies with him twice, he's a pretty convincing younger Agent K.
Yeah, he's great. And apparently Tommy Lee Jones wasn't a massive fan of his impression. Yeah.
Wow.
But I think, that's just like something, when IMDb trivia just like takes grabs from the press junket and writes and tries to pass that off as trivia. I think that's just what did you think when you first saw Josh Brolin's impression of you? I didn't find it very funny. And it's like, that's a piece of trivia right there.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a cool movie, and I like that it's about I like that's time travel. I think that's a really unique way to take it. There's a bit in the movie where they tell Jay that time travel's a thing, and he's like, no, if time travel's a thing, I would know it. I'm a senior level agent. And I thought that was exciting. I liked that when you time travel, you really need to drink chocolate milk. That was a fun quirk to it. What did you think of it? What are your thoughts?
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I really like this film. I thought it's another one of those films that's like it shouldn't be good.
Yeah, and when
the first sequel was bad 10 years earlier, and it's like, especially comedy sequels are usually shit. Some distant comedy sequels, and it's like, why should Men in Black 3 be decent?
Yeah, and I think as well, like the second one, maybe it's the nostalgia talking, didn't hate it. Like, thought it still had a lot of good qualities. And
I enjoyed all of these films, except for the next one. But,
and they're all pretty good. And you get to this point, and I was just thinking, like, this is a solid franchise. Like, the first one's easily the best, and there are kind of glitches or whatever along the way. But, like, I look at similar franchises or franchises that have had this many entries. I'm not nearly as cheery about them by this point. I'm not nearly as, like, happy to watch Karate Kid 3 as I am to watch Men in Black 3, which I was really excited to check out because, Richard, I don't think I'd seen this movie before. I think I had certainly... here's what I think happened. I think my parents got it out, hired it out on DVD, right at what I assume was the end of DVDs, and watched it, and I was maybe in and out of the room because I remember Boris, I remember the jumping off the building time travel, I remember Josh Brolin, and I remember seeing the ending at Cape Canaveral and the twist that it's his dad. But everything else, again, was like just completely... I didn't know Michael Stuhlbarg was in the movie. Will Arnett's in the movie. Who else? There's a lot of like...
uncredited cameo, yeah.
There's a lot of cameos in this series, I think, from people that you're like, I didn't know they were in this.
Yeah. My main memory of this film is that of when it was out was, do you remember when you go to the cinema and you would... This is a real bad story, but and there would be like those little booklets that tell you all the movies that are currently in cinemas, and you go through. And I remember they were coming out like that month or the next month. And that used to be like how I would find out about some new films. I went to the mall. It was like me, our friend David Correos, and a couple other people, and we used to play this game where Dave would pretend to be like a confused tourist, and so he would tuck his polo shirt into his shorts and then wander around the mall, in a very exaggerated Filipino accent, pointing at the picture.
Tell us what it was like.
Pointing at the picture of Will Smith in this and being like, "Where is the movie theater? I want to see the black man. I want to see Man Black."
It's a good joke. It started as like, we should maybe get Dave's clearance on this joke. And then I was like, I get it. Never mind.
But yeah, he was quite enjoyed playing that. Or the other thing we'd do, just these afternoons at the mall, we would like Dave would be walking along the like bottom floor of the mall. We'd be walking up the top floor of the mall, and we would like wait a certain amount of time until there was no one around that knew that we were affiliated with Dave, and then we would like drop a piece of food down as he was walking past, and he would just pick it up and eat it. And it was just like, so that you're seeing this guy to be like, did they just drop food from the first one? And then like, did that guy just eat it? This is like when we got there, our pranking phase. It was just
should have
like
filmed it and put it on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, this predates the days of those kind of social experiments. But yeah, no, Men in Black 3 is a good film. What do you think of Jermaine Clement? I remember thinking it was like crazy that this like New Zealand celebrity is making out with Nicole Scherzinger in a film.
The exact same thought, dude. When you said, "What did you think of him?" I was preparing to pronounce Scherzinger. It was what I was doing in my mind. No, yeah, I think that is crazy, and it's like a really like kinky makeout as well because they got like massive tongues. God, it gave me the fattest boner. So I think we need to warn people before we make jokes like that. It's been like warning. This is a gross episode.
I thought you were going to be like, we have to warn people. Like, it gave me and just warning, I am going to say fattest boner.
Yeah.
Fattest boner. Do you have anything else you want to say about Men in Black Cubed?
I don't think so.
Fun fact, you know, the movie opens with Rip Torn's character's funeral. He is actually playing one of the aliens at his funeral.
Yeah, I wondered why, because Rip Torn didn't die till a couple of years.
2019.
Yeah. And do you know, I thought the joke was going to be they were going to go back in time and Zed would be still in command and he'd be the same age.
The same age, yeah.
And just, you know, just for the how old are you kind of joke.
Yeah. He plays Zed in 2002 in Men in Black 2 and then doesn't play him in Men in Black 3, but he did make one more appearance as Zed. Do you know what that was?
I reckon it was like a Super Bowl commercial.
You're close.
Something like that, right?
So in 2015, so 3 years after Men in Black 3, Agent Zed, played by Rip Torn, and Frank the Pug, who we haven't mentioned but is in all these movies, although he's not in the third one, but there's a picture of him.
Because he's presumably dead, I think, is the implication.
But he speaks, and the same voice actor the whole time. But appear in an Air New Zealand safety video.
That's right. Oh my fucking God. The unprovoked Men in Black safety video for Air New Zealand. What year was it? 2015. Men in Black is not... I went on so many fucking rants about this in 2015 because I took so many fucking flights in 2015. And it was just like, what is culturally relevant about Men in Black right now?
Well, the idea is that the All Blacks are sometimes called the Men in Black.
I don't think that's a good enough reason. And I also don't consider that canon, but we should watch it for Film Franchise Follow-ups.
And then we just give us an excuse to go on about New Zealand safety videos.
But it's so good, isn't it, that like Rip Torn is the actor you could get to be in your Air New Zealand safety video.
And whoever voices Frank the Pug.
Yeah. You're not getting Tommy Lee Jones or Will Smith or Tony Shalhoub even.
Oh, you could get Tony Shalhoub.
You could get Tony Shalhoub.
We'll get Tony. So the franchise lay dormant for a time. There was talk of a fourth film. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones both said that they'd consider appearing in a fourth film. Jones saying that, you know, we're in the swing of it now. It'd be easy to just pick it up again. Men in Black 3 did well. The chief exec of Columbia said, yeah, we believe it to be an ongoing franchise and we're going to do another one. Barry Sonnenfeld said Will would get too rambunctious. And
Will get too rambunctious, he'll fucking slap someone.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Will Smith obviously wanted to put his son Jaden in the fourth film. He actually wanted Jaden to play young Jay in Men in Black 3, but Barry Sonnenfeld nixed the idea. And yeah, it was reported in 2013 that there was one being written, and then just the next announcement we got was that it was being rebooted.
Interesting.
And that's what happened. Although there was one other thing that happened in between this cancelled project, which we'll talk about and continue the franchise. But
the Air New Zealand safety video.
Yes. Oh, sorry, we have mentioned that. No, Men in Black International came in 2019, directed by F. Gary Gray. And what does it have on Rotten Tomatoes?
I reckon like 17%.
23%.
Yeah.
So, what's this one about?
So this one is about a British MIB agent named Chris Hemsworth. No, Agent H. And he
Which presumably
is...
stands for Hemsworth.
Yeah. He teams up with Agent M, which I thought was dumb because Michael Jackson's Agent M. Like, there's obviously more than 26 Men in Black, but we only hear the names of singular letters. And I reckon you shouldn't reuse...
No, there's a double A or something, isn't there? In this one?
There's in this one, yeah. Or is Will Arnett double A, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Liam Neeson, who's the Rip Torn of, the Emma Thompson of the English MIB, is Agent High T. So he's a high agent. And they, Tessa Thompson is like a new recruit. It's very similar to the Will Smith storyline. She's teamed up with Chris Hemsworth, and what are they trying to do? They're trying to they locate a weapon that can like destroy galaxies, and they're trying to make sure it doesn't end up in the wrong hands. Kumail Nanjiani voices a disgusting little freak in this movie, and a little alien. And Liam, when I'll tell you the end of the film, but first I got to tell you what the top comment was when the trailer for this movie was posted on Reddit, which was, so the trailer gets posted on Reddit. Top comment is, "What's the bet? Liam Neeson ends up being the bad guy." And everyone responding to it was just like, "Oh my god, oh holy shit, of course." Yeah. And it's
so Liam Neeson tasks them with finding the mole inside MIB,
which is a good idea for a story, I thought, for a Men in Black story. And it ends up being like he is the bad guy in disguise, but it's also like a possession dealy where he was possessed by one of these aliens. The Hive, thank you. And what I thought was quite a clever piece of writing in this film is that everyone, like Tessa Thompson's asking all these questions about Agent H, and everyone's like, well, he hasn't been the same since this incident with the Hive, which was, I think, 3 years earlier. And
which is the cold open of the film.
Yeah, and whenever people ask him about it, what does he say? He's like, me and Agent...
We went up there with nothing but our wits.
And our specific type of gun, and saved the day. And he says it once and it sounds very rehearsed, and then he says it again towards the end of the film, and she's like, no, tell me what happened. And he says the exact same terminology. And I was like, that's great. And the reveal is that he was neuralized because Liam Neeson's the bad guy. And when you're neuralized, you are then told a story, right? You're told, all right, you're going to go and take your girlfriend to Cambodia, and people are left with that being as their new reality.
Which is one thing as well, just sorry to back up, but like in the third film, at the end, when he neuralizes him and says, your dad was a hero. Your daddy was a hero. That it's like, that is, it's not just like, people always told me he was a hero, but I didn't believe them. But it's like the idea of neuralization is that it's like that becomes your sole truth. Nothing will ever change that for you. So it's like, yeah, it's cool that Jay grew up rather than just being like, oh, my dad was this deadbeat I never knew. It's like, I know my dad was a hero. I just wish I knew more about him.
Yeah. And I thought it was a clever way to like play around with the law set up by the deneuralizer. Because I worked it out before Tessa Thompson works it out, right? That it's like, he's using very specific wording, and it doesn't show you the scene, I don't think, but you can imagine him being deneuralized and Liam Neeson being neuralized, and Liam Neeson being like, yep, we came out here with nothing but our wits and our da-da-da-da-da, and it's a good idea. It's a good way to experiment with the familiar items, I think, in the story. And then, they defeat Liam Neeson, who's a hive monster. But, again, it's like a possession kind of situation.
But, I remember that, yes, the trailer made it very obvious that, yes, this was going to happen. I remember seeing that on Reddit. And then I remember when the film came out, just looking at comments and people being like, the thing that you think happens in this film happens in this film. And so I was like, okay, yes. And that was the confirmation I needed. And so, I didn't watch this when it came out. It came and went in cinemas. Without anyone really noticing. I don't think I know a single person other than you that watched the film.
Can I say something I heard about this film?
No.
Or would that... Okay. I heard that Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson hired writers to beef up their dialogue on this film.
So they had writers on set with them. This is like famously troubled production, this one.
Yeah,
Gary Gray tried to take his name off it a bunch of times. There was apparently the script was incredible, and people have said, you don't attract Hemsworth and Thompson without having an incredible script. It was The villain was like a band with 4 members that was a riff on the Beatles, and at the end they joined together to make one big monster. Right. The producer who was Parks, I don't know, the producer of the film, clashed with F. Gary Gray a bunch of times, and scripts were just constantly getting revisions, and apparently Parks stepped in on directing duties, although apparently no DGA rules were said to have been violated. And then even when it came down to color correction in the edit, they were bickering over this, and the studio made 2 cuts, one which was F. Gary Gray's cut, one that was the producer's cut, and the producer's cut is the theatrical one.
Right. Interesting.
But it's funny, there was this, I remember hearing at the time that, there's this famous thing of that they got their writers on set each to help them beef up their dialogue, and I'm so glad they did, because then we get things like when she's being recruited and she's the montage of getting her stuff, she picks up one of her guns, taps it and goes, check please. I couldn't fucking believe that line. This is this is the shit I would do to only make myself laugh. It's like, and Tessa Thompson's writer being like, "Oh, sorry, can I just have a word with Tess?
Try check,
in this
please.
Take, you should say check, please, because it's like when you're in a restaurant."
You
I just think that would be really funny.
I just thought it'd be real funny.
Anyway, sorry, I'm good. Go
Speaking of Thompson, Emma Thompson returns in this film, and I just think that's interesting that you'd get the random character from like the character from the third one. Men in Black. Yeah, no, I guess it's like, you see that it's got a new cast and you think it's gonna be entirely almost like separated from the original trilogy. But then it's like this like tie to the third film as part of it. I thought that was interesting. You do also see a painting on the wall of J and K fighting a termite, which my first thought with that was like, I don't think the Men in Black would like immortalize stuff that happened. Like, isn't that the whole point? Is that nothing is kept, out of the open, maybe?
And also, like, that wasn't the biggest thing they did necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think this was that bad.
I thought this was so bad.
I thought it was okay. I don't know. I think the only real thing I didn't like was Kumail Nanjiani's character, but then I kind of just went along with it and got into it. I was like, whatever.
He's such an AJ character.
Don't say that.
He's a gizmal.
What a gizmal?
Yeah, which is my
right.
That are AJ
Asian,
a gizmal.
What's wrong with this movie? Let me clarify. I don't think it's a great film. I think it's more or less a retread of the first film, and not as good. But I don't know. I didn't think it was that bad.
Well, my issues with it are more that I can't name anything good about it. It's such a flat, flavorless, bland movie, and it's one of those movies that, like, watching it, I remember there were bits in it that I remember. Oh, this was in the trailer, and wow, they thought this was the funniest part of the movie. It's like, it probably is. It's not. She's just saying check, please, like you do in a restaurant.
Like you do in a restaurant. Do you get it? I don't think you get it.
But like, and also, just Hemsworth and Thompson. I also hated the fact that they put romance between Thompson and Hemsworth. And it's interesting because obviously she's all fucking goo goo gaga over him the whole movie. I mean, not necessarily romance, but there's an attraction. Right. And I think that I'm so used to, because it was obviously, we're getting the pair from the Ragnarok that worked so well. And they're platonic and completely platonic in that. And I don't know. I just thought it was like a betrayal for Tessa Thompson to be playing like all googly eyed.
Who is
over
it?
Chris Hemsworth.
Was it Anna Paquin and I want to say Bill Paxton played father and daughter in Fly Away Home, and then 10 years later they did a sex scene together in another movie.
Oh, wow.
That's fucked up, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I just... It's also just like...
it might not be Bill Paxton. I shouldn't have said... But who's in Fly Away Home? Is it Dennis Quaid?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels! It's Jeff Daniels. There's an insight into my brain and the different categories of actor that I have.
And then she has a sex scene with Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
And what? The Squid and the Whale.
Just looking up Jeff Daniels Anna Paquin sex scene. I'm like, oh, here's a clip to let me just go on this website X Hamster. It says that it'll tell me what I need to know.
Yeah, that's pretty kooky.
That's pretty fucking kooky, dude. Like, that makes me want to nod my head. Tell you what, if I had to do a sex scene with someone who I once pretended was my dad, I'd want to get those memories neuralized right away.
But yeah, like, I think it's just so boring to be like, oh, we've got Chris Hemsworth, and guess what? All the girls are going apeshit over him. It's like, yeah, and like watching the film, because it's very much, oh, there's a mole, and I don't know that much about Agent H. I'm like, it would be more interesting if Agent H was the villain.
I did like that there was that snidey British dude who ended up becoming their friend, though. I thought that was sweet.
Yeah, Rafe Spall.
Rafe Spall, yeah. Thought he did well. He did a good job. I always love a good, like, we hate each other, but we realise we're on the same side kind of thing in a movie. That's always fun.
We're not so different, you and I.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's interesting to watch a movie that, I don't know. It's a franchise ruiner, really. That it's...
You reckon?
Yeah, I mean, we had like quite a neat, nice little trilogy, and now it's like, oh yeah, there was also this spin-off that they tried that didn't at all work.
I see it more as like you've had a really nice dinner and you got a drink with it, and the drink was pretty good, but if you had to pick between the two, you'd go with the dinner, obviously, and then you have this other dessert that's just like a wafer. And you're like, it didn't ruin the dinner, but it didn't really I didn't really need it. That's how I feel. Because you were like, hey man,
What's
you're
the
really
drink?
The sequels, I guess. both sequels? Is that okay? Can one
I had
item
two drinks with dinner?
I had two drinks. I guess it's because you messaged me and you're like, buddy, you're going to have to go out to bat for Men in Black International. And I was like, no, I don't like it enough to go out to bat for it. I just didn't think it was like this is the time period where we had films like Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald and Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom. Those are bad movies, mate. Like those are like,
Dominions.
Oh my God.
Dominions much worse.
I agree, but it's still there was 2018, 2019,
true.
those films, and compared to those, I think this is pretty passable. It's not. I don't think it ruins the franchise.
Well, this one doesn't have anything I really actively hate in it, but there's just nothing I remotely like in it.
I'd argue that's better than it being something like Crimes of Grindelwald.
Sure. Like, it's better than a bad movie, but I have nothing.
So you admit it.
It's just crazy that you have like two, a franchise that's a fucking, it's an Aliens, what I mean? That it's like this, it should just be a slam dunk. You put two charismatic actors in it, and it's I remember thinking when it was first announced and came out and stuff, because I think it was originally just announced as just being called MIB, and then it was changed to Men in Black International. But I do. That it's you have a franchise which like the stakes of it is the world, if not the galaxy, and then in the spin-off you're like, that's right, this time we're going international, and it's like the stakes were already bigger than this.
I guess it's the point of it is that it's like we're seeing other countries. Yeah. Well, we see one other country's Men in Black. It should just be called Men in Black United Kingdom or something.
London,
Men in Black London, yeah.
So that is all the films we have.
I guess they go to like Mozambique and stuff.
So there was quite notably a film which almost happened called MIB 23, which would have been a crossover between Men in Black and the 21-22 Jump Street franchise.
That's right.
So it was when the Sony hack of 2014 happened. This was how it was discovered that it was being talked about at some point. Lord and Miller then who directed the first two Jump Streets, did an interview and said, that it confirmed it. James Bobin was announced as the director who directed The Muppets. And then the work just apparently ceased. There was an interview with Channing Tatum where they asked about it, and he was like, you're preaching to the choir, when the interviewer said that they'd love it for it to happen. So I still think it could work, I really do. And if Sony would ever, really, I think, do the hard work and figure out the producer problems that are inherent with that film, I think we can still do it. But right now, I don't know why they're just not motivated to do it. It's a big overhead on that movie. So, And then he later described MIB 23 as by and away the best third sequel to any franchise that I've ever read in my entire life. Oh, funniest script. One of the funniest scripts I've ever read. I would not say that if I did not really believe it, because I don't like being wrong, specifically about that. And
I believe him. Channing Tatum, I believe that you think it's funny.
Yeah. But then he said, though, they were trying to make it all the deals, but it's kind of impossible with all the Men in Black stuff. The Jump Street films were so fun to make, and the whole joke of them was that they were making fun of sequels and remakes and reboots, and now it's gone to become a giant sequel reboot. It's almost become what we were making fun of, and so it's hard to maintain that joke when it's so high stakes. Although, sorry, I think that was that might have been Jonah Hill. But yeah, and Jonah Hill said, no, it's not going to happen. That was just
what
too
are some
hard to
other
work
things
out.
that Jonah Hill have said recently?
Yeah, so... Yeah, Jonah Hill doesn't, other than the stuff that's come out recently, he doesn't really seem to like acting anymore, so don't know if it all, I'm so disappointed that MIB 23 isn't happening. Especially, if the franchise had laid dormant and Men in Black International hadn't happened, that it's like, God, what a perfect marriage of two films.
Yeah, right.
Taking up that it's like, well, 21-22 Jump Street are incredible films. I think they're so good and so funny, such a great dynamic that it's like, well, where do you go next? Obviously, the credits for 22 has all these potential ones, but it's like, it would just it's $1 million idea. It would just work.
Yeah,
and you team them up with Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones.
Done and dusted, mate. Yeah,
we can't have you around here finger popping each other's assholes.
So is this? Are we in Continue the Franchise right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Here, do you want to know my Continue the Franchise?
Yes.
All right, we're going direct sequel to Men in Black International, a film I loved, Richard, and I'll go into that for it. No, I think I'm inspired by the titling scheme. It's they've switched to subtitle now, and I think naturally, and a place that it leads me to is Men in Black Universal or something like that.
Right,
and
so
let's
name it after the studio.
Name it after the studio. There's an alien at Universal Studios, and let's just say there's more than one, if you know it, because Hollywood be crazy, and the reason why. Most of them are aliens. Harvey Weinstein, alien. Kevin Spacey, alien.
Get back Sonnenfeld. They've got a great rapport.
I think one set in space. We sort of saw a peek of that with the prison moon, but it makes sense that they're and I do like that they are earthbound. I do like that about that, but we're on movie 5. We can experiment a little bit, I think. Yeah. So let's get 2 new actors. I haven't got anyone in mind, but feel free to give me suggestions for who you think would be a good buddy duo.
Have to do it. Come on.
Okay, give me Alia Shawkat. That'd be a good Men in Black character. No?
No.
You don't like Alia Shawkat?
No, not particularly.
Oh, okay, well, fine. She's not on the movie, Richard. That's how much I love you, is that Alia Shawkat is cut from the film. Who are good buddy pairings already? Who have we seen that works?
Will Smith and Joel Edgerton.
Martin Lawrence. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, Bad Boys in Space. Men in Black in Space could be the title.
Yeah.
There we go. I thought one thing that could be cool is if Rosario Dawson is in it and she comes back and we get an update on that kind of bleak ending to Men in Black 2. That's what I think should be.
Nice.
A space-bound mission.
Thank you for that. My Continue the Franchise is a crossover with the Rest in Peace department.
Interesting. Okay.
And
then at the end, the Ghostbusters show up.
Now, I was thinking, inspired by MIB 23, what other buddy cop duos could end up working in Men in Black? And I thought, how fun would it be to see? I'm going to actually grab the characters' names. Holland March and Jackson Healy take on, don those black suits and Ray-Bans. I'm talking, of course, about Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe from The Nice Guys.
Oh, right, The Nice Guys. I thought you were going to say Ryan Reynolds from
Jeff Bridges from Rest in Peace department.
Yeah. No, cool. Nice.
Oh, yeah. So we have been doing, that's our Continue the Franchise, but we've been doing, we've had a segment that we've started to do
emerge
more regularly.
From pure persistence from the person responsible.
This is, we should come up with a name for it, but it's like predate the franchise. So Men in Black based on a series of comic books and living proof that aliens walk among us. Rachel has gone
is
through
that her
and read
title
all those
for this week?
It is.
I've got a good title for Rachel that we could do. Our new unpaid intern, Rachel, our research assistant, Rachel.
Yeah, who does again more work than we do for this. But yeah, read all through all of the comics and watched all
How
the
many
movies
are there?
in the last 2 weeks. That's a good question. Men in Black. Okay, I'm on the page for Men in Black International. Part of the Men in Black film series.
Yes, well, we're looking for the comic book series.
Based on the Malibu/Marvel comic book series, The Men in Black by Lowell Cunningham. There is 6 issues.
Okay, nice.
Easy. So, yeah, Rachel has put together a handy list. So, broad strokes, in the films...
These are the differences between the source material and the movies.
Yeah, so in the films, the Men in Black only monitor and deal with aliens, many of whom live and work alongside people on Earth. And I actually, you talked about New York, but one of the Sonnenfeld changes, I think, was moving it to New York because they were like, fucking New Yorkers don't know what's going on. They won't care if people look like freaks. But then in the comics, they take care of either neuralizing or destroying all paranormal activity on Earth.
Right.
And it's not in the films as well. It's like Earth is the safe haven for all aliens. It's like a refugee camp sort of thing. And in the comic books, they just want to get them all off planet. And there hasn't been any contact from aliens from different galaxies. One of the most interesting things is that J and K don't have that sort of begrudging mutual respect. They just fucking hate each other.
Interesting.
The whole time.
Oh, I don't hate that. I think that's still pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so Jay actively hates Kay and wants to be nothing like him, and Kay is patronizing at best and seems to be very entertained by causing Jay physical and emotional pain.
That's good stuff. I'm happy with the movie we have, but I don't hate that dynamic. I think that's interesting.
Jay's a lot more reluctant to join the organization. The Edgar stuff is all in the comic books.
Oh, wow.
Rachel's gone through, has given me 3 full pages of notes, which is very interesting. And maybe we'll just pop Rachel's notes up on the Discord as well, because I think that people will be intrigued to read them. But yeah, just the
or even if we don't read them all now, we could read them for the next Elders ep or something. Oh, she probably should be an elder. I don't know if she is.
Zed is an unseen character, and Jay's white in the comics.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh.
There was also a reboot called Men in Black Far Cry, which is only 1 issue. And it's sort of... it came out at the same year as the movie, and it's sort of like trying to be a little bit closer to the movie, it seems like.
Right.
And they also get around using the tube, which is pneumatic tubes for humans, similar to Futurama.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Interesting, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I'm sorry I didn't read all of those notes, but yeah, I think we should make them available to be read because they are very interesting and very well written.
Well, Richard, now all we've got to do, baby boy, the love of my frickin' life, is rank that franchise over at letterboxd.com / what are we talking? Cult Popture lists, maybe. We've got a list of all the franchises we've ever covered, all 178 of them, and we have got to rank Men in Black amongst the masses. What are you thinking, man?
I think this should go. This is above the Nymphomaniac Constant?
I think this has got enough good value to be above the Nymphomaniac Constant, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, between us, we liked all of them. So the Nymphomaniac Constant being the halfway point for like where it switches from being bad movies, bad franchises to good franchises.
Which is currently at 85.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's decently better than that.
Let me throw some movies out to you. Tell me if you think they're better. It's better than.
Yeah.
The Meet the Parents franchise.
Yes.
All right. The Blade franchise.
Yes.
All right. The National Treasure franchise.
Oh. We're similar territory.
Okay. Above National Treasure, we've got Happy Feet.
And then above that is Night at the Museum, Kung Fu Panda, and which we're getting to like pretty solid territory. I think I'm going to put it above Happy Feet, below Night at the Museum.
Above Happy Feet, below Night at the Museum, making it our 62nd best franchise we've ever watched. Every time I do this, I see how high we ranked Jaws, and I get so confused as to how Jaws got into place 59 for being a great film with no good sequels. I don't know why we've ranked. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna drag Jaws down.
No, we have to wait for the re-rank episode.
Oh, the re-rank episode that we've been talking about for 2 years. Unable to save changes. All right. Well, take it up amongst yourselves, everybody, because unable to save changes. The list has changed since this page was loaded. Please refresh.
I moved it.
Oh,
because I'm saved Men in Black.
Okay, well, doesn't matter. I don't know what I'm doing here.
All right, so now it's time to reveal the next franchise, and AJ, I believe it's your turn to make me guess.
Yes! All right, so this is franchise roulette, everybody.
I hate when I'm the one who doesn't know.
Where we are going to draw a random number with Richard's random number generator, and that is going to correlate to a list. And we're going to cover a franchise on that list. Richard, give me the random number between 1 and 101.
35.
Franchise number 35 is a 6-film franchise. I think it might be 7 now. Let me check. I think we've maybe looked at doing it before, but then saw a new one was coming out.
Oh, Paranormal Activity.
Correct, it is Paranormal Activity. God, you got that pretty quick. Yeah, so how many Paranormal Activity films are there? Are there 7 or 6?
I don't know, did that one come out?
Yeah, I think so. Series, okay. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 Paranormal Activity movies, Richard, that we've got to watch over the next 2 weeks. They include Paranormal Activity, Paranormal Activity 2, Paranormal Activity 3. You're not going to believe this. Paranormal Activity 4. Then
Paranormal Activity 5.
No. Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, Paranormal Activity, the ghost dimension, ooh, and Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin, which came out in 2021 most recently. So, from aliens to ghosts, that's where we're going for our next franchise. Tune in next fortnight for that, for us covering the Paranormal Activity franchise. And I believe is not based on a book, so Rachel, you get a fortnight off.
You get a week off.
You're welcome. Yeah, what else do we need to do? We want to talk about it. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please consider liking us, following us on Instagram and Twitter. You can also donate to our Patreon, which gives you all sorts of rewards, including stuff that's coming up next. And you also should check out our Discord. Some K high in the Discord. And we'll say hi to you back because we are pretty active in that Discord, you and I.
Yeah.
A lot of good friends we've made in that Discord. Really blurs the line between fan and friend. And often it skews toward friend and makes me feel like we have no fans. So come be part of the problem.
Well, as soon as you become a fan, you also become my friend.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that is all over there, and stay tuned for the post-credit scene, which is coming at you after this music ends. Here come the men in black. Nod your head. Black suits are coming. Welcome along to the... Oh, I should have done a neuralizer joke. Like, I don't know. I can't think of one.
Forget it.
Forget it. I neuralized that moment. Welcome along to the post-credit scene. There's a segment at the end of each episode where you donate $5 or more over at patreon.com/cultpops. You get to give us something to talk about in this, the post-credit scene. Richard, who's it from and what is it?
Today's one comes to us from Joshua Cole, who says, what is your favourite bird?
I love... Oh, very good. Very funny. I love... little ducks, little ducklings.
I love ducks. I want a duck. If I didn't have cats, I would get a duck. Like,
wow.
Straight up, I want a pet duck real bad.
Okay, sorry. I don't know you
like,
love... I don't know you wanted to have sex with ducks so bad, dude.
Apparently, ducks are, like, really, like, affectionate as pets and, like, love pats and cuddles and stuff.
I've
and, like,
seen the TikToks. I've seen the TikToks.
You get them the little ice water from Starbucks. Oh, my God. Fuck, I would love a duck so much.
Well, I'm sorry, I picked duck. You've got to pick another bird.
Okay, I'll pick some dumb bird.
I'll pick, like, vulture.
Ibis.
You've sicked your vulture on me.